We're here in early spring in our Edible Acres nursery, one of our many beds, and I was doing some digging this evening on some woody perennials, in this case apple rootstock, that I stool layered a few years ago, and I meant to do a before photo, but things are just moving along. But there's a during photo, or during video, of 2 apple rootstocks set in motion to be stool layers after a few years getting many free additional apple trees. So in this video I'm going to show you a slow but steady way to get amazing free apple trees from rootstock. A couple of years ago, I think maybe 3 years ago, we bought in rootstock of a bunch of different varieties of pear and apple. In one case it was Antovnica apple, which is a really large, cold hardy Russian heirloom apple. It makes apples that are good on their own, I've been told. Let me know in the comments if you have different opinions or affirming opinions. We were using that to graft lots of different varieties of apples. We had some leftover rootstock, and in the space in front of me I planted 2 of those rootstocks. We got them for a few dollars a piece, and I just dug them up, and I want to explain what's happening here and what you might consider doing if you've got apple rootstock or pear or all sorts of other things. So it's a little hard to unpack here, but this was one plant planted a few years ago. Follow with me here. It was originally a little stem like this. And into the ground, it was planted at an extremely steep angle to the north. And so the length of this, every bud started to grow directly upward. And after a year or so, these new shoots had a bunch of sawdust and sand and compost and potting mix banked up them. And after a few years, this one stem became many individually rooted trees that we can now cut apart. So for example, that's a small but plantable or potable Antovnica apple. Not a ton of roots on this, but definitely enough to pot them up. And here is a good 2 to 3 foot tall field ready tree, or you could graft with it. Here's one that's quite a bit taller, very little roots, but these are vigorous plants, and with good compost and mulch should be fine. Or when I plant it, I could head it back to take a little bit of pressure off of that ratio of small amounts of roots to top. But so far we're at 3 viable plant copies. I'm going to snip this one on either side of the runner. So now we've got a little bit more root. You can see the original tree planted so steep, shallow to the ground that it sent up the shoot, and a few years later, that was a beautiful stem of an Antovnica apple copy. So that's 4. I think this last one's kind of a weird dud, but might still work. So I'll take that. We can pot that up. I can see where rabbits chewed on it, but that's fine. And here's this one. And then this weird, strange, wonderful beast could either be planted out. What I probably will do is pot this up as a few pieces like this into one communal pot and let it send up all sorts of new shoots that we can then stool layer again. That was one tree planted at a steep angle to the north to promote a bunch of shoots coming up that magically over time turned into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 clones, along with another pot full of future clones. Pretty neat way to multiply and amplify plants. That was one plant planted steeply to the north, left for a few years with material piled up against it that rooted out. And that one was the weak one. The other one was the one I actually wanted to show. So if you stuck around for a little bit, you'll see what these things can really do. So here is, I'm doing this in real time so I could see as we're all looking together. Extremely well rooted. You can see there's some work to be done as far as rinsing off if you want, or just sneaking through and cutting away. There's one, and this one can be cut off as well. This is very much a field ready clone. This one's really good for field or for potting up. Definitely ready to be planted out directly. I could even snip that one off if I wanted, but I don't want to be crazy with it. These are small and will go into the community pot to grow some more shoots. Another. This one's got weird multiple things. And there we go. The second plant trimmed down made 1, 2, 3, 4. This one even has the label from the original place. 5, 6, 7 beautiful photocopies of apple trees. So these could be potted up in large pots, grown for a while, and sold at local plant sales as nice leafed out potted apple trees. They could be grown for a season and grafted or multi-grafted to be Antovnica plus Gold Rush plus Honeycrisp. They could just be planted out. That's my intention with these, is to plant them as full standard apple trees in our landscape. I believe these cost about $1.50 a piece wholesale, even at $10 a piece. To be able to get one plant to turn into this many in a few years is pretty magical. Stool layering, highly recommended. Check out some other videos that we've made about that concept if you want to see it in action. But you plant a plant steeply to the north if you're in the northern hemisphere, which stimulates a lot of shoots and piles stuff up as it grows as though it were a potato, even though it's a tree. Many trees.